And we're back with another episode of The Connection Loop. And I'm your host, Darius Santos, here with another very special guest. Guys, we like to interview our business leaders, VPs of sales, CEOs, founders, and entrepreneurs because we're always trying to learn what are the effective techniques, strategies, mindsets, what's going to help us accomplish that next level of growth this year, right? Because things are changing. And that's why we found it so important to interview our business leaders that have their boots in the trenches today and bring their lessons, bring their learnings to you guys so you can benefit from just watching these shows. So guys, today's guest is Stephan, and we have a really cool lesson for you. I get the privilege of getting some sort of teasers before we go live here. So guys, this one's really cool, and it's applicable to more areas of your life than just one. We're not just talking about business development strategy here. Sometimes we are. In this case, it is very specific to business development, to sales, but also to other areas of your life, not even specific to any one deal size or any industry, but actually truly usable and directly applicable to all areas of your life. So that's really what I liked about this. It's easy enough to implement, to check on, and very, very valuable if you decide to take a look at it for yourself. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our special guest here. Stephan, feel free to tell us a little bit about yourself and then drop this knowledge on us. What is the equation we're going to learn about today?
Yeah, no, very cool. Thank you for having me. This is awesome. So first of all, Stephan Debray, sales, enterprise sales for many, many years, currently VP of sales for an infrastructure company selling distributed SQL databases, companies called PingCap. Really well positioned in the marketplace. And so this idea, about trust and building trust came in the context of a training program that we put for my team together this year around selling value to the right stakeholders. And in the context of stakeholder management, the concept of trust building became very prevalent. And we were introduced to this concept of the trust equation. And initially, when I heard about this concept of the trust equation, I was like, come on, there's no way you can break down trust in a mathematical formula. It's not happening. And then as I learned about it and I learned about the inception of it, I became an absolutely huge fan. This is actually a huge transformation for me. It's something that's been around for a very long time. A gentleman by the name of Charles Green, co-author of The Trusted Advisor. You can find this in your favorite bookstore and probably on Amazon. Is a great book. But the trust equation in itself became really, really eye-opening to me. And I've actually evangelized this to friends, to my kids, to my wife, everyone around me. And the way the trust equation works is that as follows. Trust equals credibility plus reliability plus intimacy divided by self-orientation.
Got all that?
Yeah. So I'm happy to kind of get into what that means.
Yes, please.
And obviously credibility is, you look at each one of those, all of those are pretty much self-explanatory. Like we understand credibility, reliability, intimacy may be a little bit harder. I think the harder concepts for most people to grab is self-orientation, but I can spend a few minutes on each one of them, if that's okay.
Yes, please.
Okay, right on. So credibility, obviously, it is an important factor. It's about demonstrating, honesty and integrity in everything you do, learning, building knowledge, building expertise, as much as possible, being transparent and professional about what you do. And one thing that credibility is not necessarily is being the utmost expert in your field, but simply demonstrating that you have the desire to learn, you have the ability to build knowledge, be transparent, and being really good in your communication style. So that will build a lot of credibility with people. So that's component number one. Component number two is reliability. So the way I look at reliability, and it reminds me of one of my former managers, which is, do what you say you're going to do. It's in a way that simple. It's about completing tasks on time, making sure that your quality is consistent. You show up on time. If there's a problem, you take charge, you handle it, you grab the bull by the horn. That will demonstrate reliability to the people around you. Respecting deadlines, obviously, is another obvious one. So that would be component number 2. So now we've got 2 pretty good ones. We've got credibility and we've got reliability coming together. Now, the third one, intimacy in a business context, is sometimes maybe hard to really understand what that means, but really is about understanding and paying attention to the other person. So listen, seek to understand. Some people rush into problem solving. Oh, I've got the solution. No, hold on, take time. Don't rush into problem solving. Also as a way to kind of build that relationship, being vulnerable a little bit sometimes can work pretty well. Do it in a thoughtful manner. Do it in a manner that actually is going to inspire confidence so that people can relate to you and relate to your point of view. But that level of intimacy, is actually going to play in your favor, but really in the favor of the relationship you're trying to establish with the other party. So I would say those 3 components are pretty good ones to start with. Any question or anything I should clarify?
Yeah, no, I was going to say when you first introduced the equation to me, those are the ones, the self-orientation I have the most question on, and the intimacy in the business context is what I was wondering too. I was like, well, how do we have intimacy in the business context? And I think what we often refer to, because we're a big on video stuff, so it's the authenticity that it leads to that intimacy. Because when you can truly be yourself, like, hey, I dropped the ball on something, or I'm really passionate about this thing. Being authentic can really build that intimacy without, having to give away whatever personal details of things unrelated to the conversation. Yeah.
Exactly. And spending quality time with people, doing a dinner, doing coffee, things like that, go a long way. But at the end of the day, it's really the behave that's really going to drive that level of intimacy, more so than, attending a business dinner or taking somebody to lunch, right? The quality of the conversation, the way you behave, how exactly, as you said, how authentic you are in your behavior is what people will naturally gravitate to if you're truly genuine about it, right? Don't fake it. Don't be the person you're not. Be as genuine and seek a authentic behavior and authentic interaction with the people that you work with.
And guys, thankful to technology like StreamYard here, like Zoom, like our platform, where you can actually, it's easier to be more authentic and more reliable, more seemingly present than it is for plain text. It can be hard to sort of build that authenticity. Like I said, good news or bad news, it's easy to communicate this way or in person and to have that quality of conversation. So don't confuse intimacy for needing to have like intimate conversations in the business setting. Is that authenticity? It's the ability to communicate. So the other ones should be fairly obvious, guys, being credible, being reliable, but having the understanding, the context of intimacy in the business setting, I think is really important. However, I do want to come back to what we started with, which is this entire equation, guys, is not only specific to your business and sales world. Before we went live, we were taking some applications like, guys, for your children, for your wife, for your spouse, having this level of trust is very applicable as well. For coworkers, for your employers, managers, whoever you're dealing with, this equation is still relevant, still extremely valuable to remember and to be able to reflex on and say, well, have I been credible? Have I been reliable? Have I shown some form of intimacy and authenticity with this person who I'm trying to build trust with? I have a newborn daughter. Well, not newborn. She's like 7-8 months. And so my mind sort of went to this space too, is like how I'm going to maintain credibility and reliability and that level of intimacy so that she can ultimately remain trusting of her father. So not specific to business, but
yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. No, I mean, trust is prevalent, right? It's just, it's our journey as humans, right? Throughout the years. So, now
the unknown, the
unknown, the self-orientation. Like, yeah. So let's talk about self-orientation. Self-orientation is about, how much everything you do and say and the way you act is oriented towards yourself or oriented towards others. If it's high, then at the end of the day, it's all about you. If it's low, it's really all about the other person. So, we all claim to not want to be selfish, to want to do the right thing. But at the end of the day, we're all humans and we're all, kind of going through our own journey of, figuring out a way to kind of serve our customers, serve others, and be of service to others, typically speaking. But there's definitely types of behaviors that would be red flags of not having a low self-orientation. So rushing to a solution. Oh, well, I have the solution. Well, again, I have the solution, versus we fully understand where you're going and what your needs are. Potentially competing for recognition, dominating a conversation would be signs of high self-orientation. Potentially hoarding information or not sharing information could potentially also be signs of high self-orientation. Now, how can you demonstrate a lower self-orientation? First of all, raising your own awareness of your surroundings, to know your place, to know others people's place and role, and showing the proper respect and having the proper kind of communication flow with other people would be important. Potentially challenging your own motives ahead of a meeting. What is my agenda? What is my point of view? Is it really a healthy point of view in the context of what I'm trying to achieve on the sake of that particular customer? And another big one, which is to seek to validate your own assumptions before you go into a conversation. Too many people, making assumptions is fine. Not validating the assumptions, not having the process by which you want to make sure that you understand the other person's perspective, that your assumptions are fair and valid is an important one. So I would say self-orientation is definitely an important factor. And if you think about how to affect and how to use the trust equation, well, it's going to be about how you can score on the credibility, reliability, and intimacy part, and how low you can score on the self-orientation part.
Right. That's what I was going to say. So in the business context, we're actually the self-orientation we're wanting to typically bring down. Like we don't want to come
as low as possible.
Right. Yeah. And mathematically that makes sense. Trust is highest when the value of self-orientation is lowest. And what that means in this business and conversational context is you're, instead of saying like, oh, we're so high and mighty and we have the best things and I have all the answers, it's that, well, because I'm listening to you and understand what you're telling me, because I've asked the right questions, based on what you're saying, I'm finding that we may have the answers to what you're asking, or we may have the solution to the problem.
Exactly.
Instead of we have all the answers and where that, yeah.
Exactly. 100%. And a simple way to think about it is if you assign a score that has a range between 1 and 3 to each one of those components, right? So that means that on the top end, the maximum you can score is 3 plus 3 plus 3 equals 9, right? Now, on the self-orientation piece, well, a high self-orientation is a 3. So even if you're a superstar for credibility, reliability, and intimacy, you shoot yourself in the foot with now a score of 3, right? And but at the same time, having the lowest self-orientation, takes practice. Everybody has a bad day. So maybe assume that on average you score a 2. That means that even if you're at a 9 on top, your maximum score is going to be a 4.5. So then you start realizing when people ask you, hey, you're working with that person, what is the trust factor that person has in you, in your SC, in your VP, in your service organization? Giving it a 7 or a 9 or an 8 is already a very high score. The next phase is to actually ask people to break it down. How do you come to that answer? Well, let's take a look at the formula. What is our self-orientation and what is the value of each component? And then you start realizing that maybe the trust factor is far lower than you thought it was. And you can start building it up cognitively, consciously, by having a plan for each one of those components.
No,
and that right there is magical.
Yeah, no, I realized, like, as we were going through this, I was applying these sort of, guys, this is your call too. It's like, take a moment, apply this exact formula to you and your sales process and your lead communication, like even before we take it to our own personal lives and stuff, which is awesome as well. But just even in the business development sort of sales context, what I was realizing is like our credibility. Yeah, we have, like, I personally feel like I always show up. I always do what I say I'm going to do. We have great reviews. Like there's credibility there. reliability, like I'm here every day. I'm going to be there when I start. Like, so that then I felt good about the intimacy thing part. I actually heard this from clients where I used to have my hair in a very tight, like ponytail type thing, right? Where it was just more drawn back. And then my own client said to me, they're like, well, I feel like I can trust you more with your hair like this versus the guy with the ponytail. I feel like the guy with the ponytail is going to try to sell me something. And I feel like this guy is going to help me. He wants to help me. And so I'm like, okay, well, that's just impression. So, but a layer of intimacy. And so like, that's when I became self-reflexive of that sort of intimacy and authenticity in the business setting. And I was like, okay, so I don't have to tell them my life story to create intimacy, but I can be authentic and I can be transparent and I can do those things to create intimacy. And then lastly, it came to this self-orientation where historically I'm always trying to come from this place of being humble and being always a student and saying, guys, look, we're here to provide value. We're here to help people. But at the same time, I've realized in other conversations, I've positioned maybe ourselves a little bit higher. And I've said, well, look, this is the ultimate solution when it comes to something like this. And so, and maybe I realized where that self-orientation one is where we can just make sure to double down on always making sure we're coming from that place of low orientation. Like when a question's asked, we can say, yeah, look, we have the answer for that. Great. Or here's the solution. Great. But just overall, in terms of the conversation, I think that that's something I could personally be more aware of, more reflexive on. So I'm going to go ask some people now, how have I been? And they're like, oh, no, you're always, people call me the oracle in our trainings because I'm always coming from this, like, I just want to help. Oh, here's the answers. But, you know, the oracle may have a sense of sort of like, oh, I have all the answers. But, you know, it's better to come from a place of humble, like, well, from what I've seen, here's what I can suggest. So now,
and when you see people who have, you know, some level of experience and maturity in that context, when you see them operate, you're just, you know, it's hard to pinpoint exactly what it is that they do very well. But when you see it, you can't help but being wowed by the, you know, maturity, serenity, wisdom of their approach. And it's extremely inspiring, even though it's actually so simple in a way that it's sometimes hard to replicate. It can be extremely impressive and very much inspiring.
Right. No, it's like when you watch someone do something really well, you can't tell. It looks like it's easy. They make it look so easy. You're like, I could do that. And then you realize there's actually so many subtleties and complexities and everything. So, guys, this is about mastering your game too, because this trust can happen sort of passively, sort of naturally. We were actually discussing where if you go look at your own behaviors or your top reps' behaviors, you look at what they're doing, they often will have some framework like this in place. They're already doing things like this to self-analyze, to build trust, to build credibility and reliability. They just didn't have a label for it or a framework for it. So that's what we realized too. It's like we'd maybe been implementing and doing some of these things, but without understanding or having a specific framework for it. So we're grateful for lessons like this to sort of make it easier to understand and also very actionable, guys. We're on Connection Loop. We want you to walk away with something that you can go do this in your business today. You can go turn this on or think about it and activate from it today. Those are the types of lessons we'd like to bring. So I appreciate you, Stephan, for bringing us a really easy and a very valuable one today as well. So
yeah, no, my pleasure. Everybody just even, you know, search for trust equation. You'll find a bunch of articles. Some people that spend the time to kind of break it down, provide their own perspective. It's all good. Lots of value there. So hey, thank you so much for having me. That was really awesome.
Absolutely. We appreciate your time, Stephan. So guys, check us out next time and come find this episode. It'll be live on LinkedIn. We'll have it on the all podcast episodes where available. So see you next time, guys. Thanks again for your time.
Thank you.
All right.